I'm Michael Bain, and welcome to our very first Triggered of 2024. This will be our 5th year of Triggered. That's just absolutely amazing to me. And remember, at the end of last year, I promised that our first episode here would be a travelogue. Last fall, my sweetie and I went to Paris and Amsterdam, and you know me, I couldn't visit a place and not go to the arms museums. So I wanted to show you some of the things I saw and maybe put them in a little bit of a context for you. I think we're going to start in Amsterdam because, you know, I really like the way those buildings lean to one side. It's an amazing city. And if we go back to, say, the 1600s, beginning 1602, something like that, the Dutch were the richest people on the planet. Dutch East India Corporation, they imported spices. They were very, very rich, and they control the seas. In Amsterdam now, there's the Rijksmuseum, which is one of the great art museums in the Western world. It's the home of Rembrandt's Night Watch, which we have to look at behind plastic panels to keep the barbarians from sacking it. But in the basement of the basement of the basement, there's an arms room, 2 rooms in fact. One room is the model ship room, and next to it is the arms room. And they are absolutely fascinating. If you get a chance to go, you're going to see some amazing things. In the ship model room, which I could have stayed in for hours, when they were building ships in like 1600, early 1600, they didn't have huge comprehensive plans. But what they had were perfect models of their warships, their ships of the line, man of war. They also had detail models, so if you needed to know how, say, a 36-pound cannon had to be mounted in a sailing ship, well, they had a small model of it put together. Obviously, eventually, comprehensive diagrams and did away with the need for the models. But the models themselves are just spectacular, absolutely wonderful. There's even a model of a submarine. It was never made, but darn, it's a model that you'd really like to have in your house. The arms room is, remember, this is an art museum. So what you're seeing is art pieces. I thought of it the same way as the Japanese would think of, say, the great samurai swords, which they refer to as the treasures of Japan. These are the treasures of the Netherlands. You see a lot of very ornate wheel locks used for hunting. Now, they're ornate because, once again, Amsterdam was the center of the universe in the 1600s, the golden years they call it, of Amsterdam and the Dutch there, where they owned the seas. So you see some incredible wheel locks. One gun there that caught my attention that I really liked, it's a 5-barrel flintlock. Okay, maybe early 1700s, mid 1700s. The cool thing is you could double charge each barrel. You can get up to 19 rounds, but when you pull a trigger, all 19 fire. It does say that there's a little hesitation in the firing, which allows you to keep moving your aim around. Just absolutely spectacular designs of firearms. You can see matchlock, wheel lock, flintlock. That's about as far as it goes in the arms room. But this is the best work ever on these arms. So one of the things that I really like was the level of ornamentation. You look at a flintlock, it's just an incredible amount of work has gone into it. A couple of guns that I really liked are guns that were boarding guns, swivel guns on galleys in the Mediterranean, like the Barbary pirates, for example. Huge swivel gun shooting a great big ball of various and sundry shot that broke up, essentially grape. It's used to scour the decks of ships. And I think, honestly, I really need one of those here at the Secret Hidden Bunker. Maybe 4 or 5 of them. But take a look at this gun as art. And when we come back, we're going to Gay Paris.
This week's Triggered is brought to you by Muzzle Stick. Biggest, brightest, strongest. Arms Corps, Rock Island Armory. What's your passion? Taurus, USA. Always ready? Always bring it. Stoger, everyday tough. SDS Imports, Thesis. Thesis means quality. Hunter's HD Gold. They change so you don't have to. And MTM Case Guard. Quality shooting sports accessories.
Welcome back to our very first Triggered of 2024. And now it's time for Gay Paris. It's where lovers go, right? Well, we're in Paris, we're eating great food, taking a tour down the Seine, seeing the Eiffel Tower, all the things that you do when you're in Paris. But on the African forums, I'd seen mention of a really strange, quirky museum in Paris. It's called the Museum of Hunting and Nature, which is kind of a weird name, isn't it? It's in an old mansion, and it's exactly that. It has essentially the history of hunting in all these like enormously wonderful decorated rooms. And once again, it's an old mansion. And it is, shall I say, quirky? Some of the reviews said more than quirky, it's weird. But you go from room to room, maybe a history of boar hunting, maybe a history of dogs. There's also some unicorns, falcons, a room built out of crow feathers, and a lot of them sort of memorabilia from Planet of the Apes. I don't know, go figure. But I found fascinating the gun room. In fact, I found it so fascinating, I was in there studying all the guns. A lot of them are hunting guns, less ornamented guns, but hunting guns that were used in mostly the 1800s, some all the way back to the late 1700s, and walls of taxidermy. It's odd to see a museum with stuffed animals in them. A couple of things that caught my eye there that I thought were really cool. A couple of the old African hunting rifles, the great big flintlock, big bore hunting rifles that took some of the game in that room. Also, wonderfully ornamented blunderbuss. Once again, you see it's not really an arms museum. It's more of kind of as I said, a quirky museum. And you see a level of ornamentation that you would not normally see almost anywhere else. These guns are a fortune in ornamentation on them. Inlaid with gold, a lot of exotic carvings in them. It's a neat place. If you're in Paris, I think it's only like 10 pounds to enter, and you get to wander around in all these different rooms and see lots of different strange things. One of the things they also had there was an exhibit by Sean Landers, who you've seen his art behind me in a couple of shows. It's animals in plaid, which bizarrely enough works. There's nothing like seeing a plaid yak, I always say. So you got art, you got a lot of interesting and strange, quirky things. Definitely go to the gun room, but I was in the gun room for so long, the curator came out and said, "Can I help you?" I said, "No, dude, I'm just looking at guns." And he's like, "Are you an expert?" I said, "Maybe." But once again, the more you look at older weapons, the more you can see kind of that evolution. Matchlock, wheel lock, that little, you wind up the gun, it spins, hits, makes a spark, to flintlocks. And that's once again about as far as it goes there. I would say it's an absolutely necessary visit. It's right up there with the Louvre, sorta. But you gotta go to the Louvre to see the Mona Lisa. So, that's a little bit of our travelogue in Europe, showing you some really neat guns. To me, the more guns that I see that allow me to understand the history of firearms, to understand how firearms developed into what we have today, the better it is. So take a look. These are beautiful works of art. And maybe next time we'll go to, I don't know, Turkey? Let's see some Ottoman guns. So welcome to 2024. You got to remember to keep your head down this year. It scares me. But hey, maybe I need that 5-barrel pistol so I can just pull the trigger and whompa, 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 whompa. This is Triggered. You can find us on Facebook, amazingly. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us on Rumble. You can find us on X. But definitely find us. And we got some great stuff in store for the rest of the year. We'll see you next week.